in the very least, this film is a good reminder that Nazis are bad. On December 21st, Welcome to Marwen came out, starring Steve Carell. Robert Zemeckis directed it. And, you know, I was not as disappointed as so many other people are about this film online. It has a terrible score on Rotten Tomatoes. I think I saw that it stands to lose at least $50 million in the box office. It's not a successful movie for anyone involved. That's okay. I think that's more than okay. Right now we have so many... There's, again, I know I spoke about this when I talked about Creed 2. There's just so many remakes, reboots, franchises, sequels. You know, there's not a lot of original content, and even though this is based on a true story, it's just so refreshing to see something new and something a little risky, you know, in terms for the people involved. This is a risky story to tell. It's not conventional by any means within major commercial film. So thank you to Robert Zemeckis and Steve Carell. Honestly, thank you for taking a chance on this story, for putting it out there into the mainstream, because right now I think it is so important to tell stories like this. If you're not familiar with the premise of Welcome to Marwen, it is based on a true story, based on the real-life person, Mark Hogenkamp, who lives in upstate New York, and it tells the story of him overcoming his fear and trauma from an attack that he experienced. The reason for the attack was that Mark was at a bar, he befriended a group of gentlemen, they all got to talking and they're drinking, and at some point Mark reveals that he wears women's shoes. When he left, they attacked him and they nearly killed him. He spent months in the hospital, and after all his benefits ran out, because they did run out, he was dismissed and wasn't being given treatment anymore. So he ended up developing his own therapy, pretty much, by creating a miniature town that he named Marwen in real life. For the plot line and storytelling, it was changed to Marwen for the film, but in the town of Marwen, Mark Hogenkamp uses this town to heal, to get revenge on the people who attacked him, who he depicts as Nazi characters in this town. Marwen is a 1940s Belgium neighborhood. And so the bad guys are represented by Nazis. The rest of the people in town are women, and Mark's avatar called Hoagie, Captain Hoagie. The town and the women in the town become storytelling devices that are used as like a metaphor or, you know, symbolic or symbols for the inner turmoil, the battles that Mark Hogenkamp is going through while he's dealing with this trauma, while he's trying to heal from the incident that occurred to him so long ago, but that is still affecting his day-to-day life. He had been an illustrator prior to the attack. He can barely write his own name now. He has a lot of fear of befriending people. He's become pretty isolated. He has no memories of his former life from before the attack as well. I think Steve Carell did a really good job at portraying Mark Hogenkamp, who has become this kind of sort of awkward, quirky recluse, and, you know, he only interacts with a few people in the neighborhood, and he turns them into dolls that become characters in his town. I do agree that not diving into some of these female characters does feel a little awkward in the movie Welcome to Marwen. I can agree with that. It might feel a little disjointed, but at the end of the day, I think it's all right, because Marwen is a device for Mark Hogenkamp. It's his private therapeutic thing. The film Welcome to Marwen, I don't think is supposed to take place in Marwen. The same way that Marwen is a device for Mark Hogenkamp, I think it's also a device for the viewer to kind of just enter that turmoil, that battle that he experiences in moments of stress and trauma. So I thought it was a really interesting device that was used when they turned the town into this fantasy world that you get to see Mark Hogenkamp interacting in. as Captain Hoagie. You get to see the things that he wants, the person that he wishes he could be, the woman that he proposes to, who ultimately turns him down. And those are things that actually happen to him in his real life. I, for one, did not think about Michael Scott or The Office at all. I thought Steve Carell did a great job adapting this real-life person to the big screen for this role. If you stay focused on the idea that this film is about Mark Hogancamp healing and getting over some of his traumatic experiences, then I think the film works. But if you're wanting to find out more about certain characters, certain doll characters, and where their inspiration came from or who they are, then you might find yourself wanting a little bit more in terms of those characters. But again, if you just bring yourself back and you focus on the fact that this film is about him and using the dolls as a tool, then I think it's all right. If you've ever overcome something personal to you that is terrifying, you might maybe connect to this more. One part of the movie that I thought was really cool is pretty much, it's toward the end, and you see Hoagie, he takes his high heel that he's wearing and he stabs the Nazi with it, and he ultimately kills a Nazi with the high heel, right? So that's symbolic of, him not being ashamed anymore of the fact that he wears women's shoes and that he got beat up for that reason. And I just thought that that was a really cool device to use the high heel to stab the Nazi in the neck. I'm clearly in the minority thinking that, this movie was a success, but I really do encourage you to go out and see it. If not now, when it comes out of theaters, take a couple hours and just watch it. Take a minute, look up Marwen Call, the documentary that tells this story as well. I think you'll find hope. I think you will walk away feeling good that this man persevered and he didn't let hate win. And coming off of that, I think it's so important these days, again, to bring these stories to the forefront, to the mainstream, where we see different identity issues, different gender issues, and the whole story doesn't have to be about that thing. At a time in America where we're seeing more hate crimes, we're seeing issues of freedom of speech, I think it's so important to look at a film like this and see the bigger picture of what it means. One thing that Robert Zemeckis is getting shit on a lot for is the fact that there is a time travel element. There's a car that is a time machine in Welcome to Marwen. It happens toward the end, and Mark Hogancamp builds this time machine for one of the dolls that is the witch, the Belgian witch of Marwen. And she kind of represents shame and fear, and any of the female characters that get too close to Captain Hoagie, she gets rid of them. A lot of people are just like, ugh, I can't believe you're just doing the self-indulgent nod to Back to the Future, but actually the time machine was real. If you watch Marwen Call, you find out that Mark Hogancamp built one of the dolls, the time machine. It is real to the story. This movie is getting a lot of flack, and I think maybe unfairly so. Go watch it, I think it's worth it. While on the subject of media that is exploring different identities and what it means to be different, check out Relatable by Ellen DeGeneres on Netflix. It's her latest stand-up special. I think you'll find a lot of really amazing stories in there from where she came from and how she got to be who she is now. Check it out. Thanks for listening to me talk about Welcome to Marwen. Yeah, let me know what you think, and let me know what other movie you might want me to talk about in the future. Please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.